Hello and welcome to Gatekeepers. In this episode, we're going to be discussing deception and plot twists. If you haven't already done so, please consider subscribing to the channels linked in the video description below. If you are already subscribed and you enjoy tonight's content, please consider hitting the like button as it helps the channel. If you don't like the content, that's fine. You can also hit the dislike button. It still gives us feedback on what you like and dislike about our content. Without further ado, let's get into it, shall we? My name's Jaide, and this is my Tabletop Tavern. Welcome. With me tonight, I'm joined by MarHawkman. Welcome, sir. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Awesome. Also joining me will be Conall the Cigar DM. Welcome, sir.
Hey, how are you doing today?
I'm doing all right. You?
I'm freshly out of cigars, which means I'm freshly out of give a fucks. So
you're not quite the Cigar DM then. You're just the DM.
No, not quite yet.
Okay. All right. And also joining us this evening is Shadow of Shadow and Sun. Welcome, sir. How are you?
Awesome. In every conceivable way. It's been a great week. Busy. All kinds of stuff going on. Yeah.
All right. We are joined by in chat. Yep, TCG, the Crafting Gamer. Where's the earth-shattering kaboom? There was supposed to be an earth-shattering kaboom. Hello. All right. So, well, thank you for joining us this evening. Our topic is actually coming directly from our Discord. If you're not a member of our Discord, I do recommend that you join. That's where you can pose questions or comments to the Gatekeepers, and we can make it into a topic, especially questions about tabletop gaming. So, well, let's not beat around the bush, shall we? Misinformation, red herrings, deception, and plot twists. These are all things I believe most game masters do, and not necessarily with malicious intent, but with purpose. And what we're going to be discussing tonight is, when is it okay for game masters to deceive their players, and when is it not? And go to the player side. Are players meant to deceive their game masters or not? Those are some of the things we're going to be talking about this evening. And then towards the tail end, we're going to be covering a topic that is purposeful deception, known as plot twists. This is where we seed little things or nuances into the ongoing story that if someone is keen-minded enough to pick up on, they'll know the plot twist is coming. But those who aren't keen-minded enough, well, they might just miss it and be completely surprised. So, let's start with, when is it okay to lie or deceive your players as a game master, or as a player to a game master? Shadow, I'm going to start with you on this one.
Absolutely never. Honesty is the best policy. If you break that trust on either side, we're not even friends anymore. I have no tolerance for it. You've entered into a social agreement to play a game. If this was any other game and you pulled that kind of shenanigans, you definitely wouldn't be asked back to the table, and you'd probably be looking at an altercation outside the house or establishment. I get it that in this kind of game there are opportunities on the DM side to try to waylay or mislead the players. There is a fine line, and you can do it and still keep your integrity and still keep the contract valid. But once you cross over that line, you're probably in the wrong hobby, or maybe you need to rework your chops, rethink the adventure you have planned. If you literally have to lie, I just don't get that. I'm at a complete loss of why you would ever do that. There are so many other ways to go around it, because if your players figure it out, call you on it, or what have you, you could easily lose the game, lose the group.
Okay. Conall, I think you just lost the game there. For those of you who know, you know. Conall, when is it okay to lie or deceive your players or game master?
Okay. Hold on, I need a drink. I can't. Granted, this is non-alcoholic, but it's very tasty. Lying by lying's sake it's not good. I agree with Shadow. I do agree with that, but at the same time, I don't. Depends on who you're gaming with. Depends on how many years they have at the game. If you set up a counter and they can mechanically, knock it down to the nuts and bolts of it, well, we only need to swing at this guy 5 times, that guy 3 times, and it's no longer a game. It's just it's no longer fun for a lot of players. So lying is a very double-edged tool. It's a very double-edged knife. I agree. I immensely agree with that. But sometimes the goblin should have 20 points, not 15 hit points.
That's not lying.
Yes, it is. Because if you're playing with vets who have been DM'd themselves, they know what HP some of these monsters should be at. In the moment you changed HP from blank to blank, you, sir, are lying.
No, that's not what lying is. That's
Lying
rewriting
is
the rule.
Yeah, I have to agree with Shadow here, is that you didn't tell them the goblins have 20 hit points. You just told them that you're using a creatures called goblins.
Yeah, and all you have to do is at the beginning of the game, these session 0, if you will, or prior to a single die being rolled, all you have to do is say, I'm going to be using a whole lot of non-standard monsters. Hope you enjoy.
Why would you say that? Why? Why would you say that?
Because a lot of people like to brag.
They don't need to know. They don't need to know what kind of game they're sitting at. All they need to know is this is the type. It's going to be swords and sandals. It's going to be futuristic.
I see that, Jade. I see that.
They don't really need to know. They just need to know that they're there to sit down for an adventure, to have a good time. So the moment you change little things, it is deceiving.
I would see your point. I would see your point if you were saying we are playing a rules as written game of X. Then you'd be absolutely correct. But if you're not, every DMG out there says do whatever you want with the rules. Period.
Until they changed their mind, and I don't remember what edition it was where they changed their mind. It's like, no, you have to play at the game I want to play, and that was the holy Gary Gaxon.
That was 4th and 5th.
No.
Yeah.
Was it?
Yeah. Anyway, yeah. All right.
I'm not saying it's great to lie to your players, but sometimes it is essential to say what?
Conall, we're men of action. Lies do not become us.
I'm Irish. We lie on principle.
I'm Irish too.
See, then you're just lying to yourself.
Then no one gets hurt.
To quote a show, everybody lies.
Absolutely.
I thought you were going to go there.
You're not wrong there.
Anyway.
So, Mar, what about you? When is it okay for game masters to deceive their players or players to deceive their game masters?
See, I get where Shadow and Sun is going with outright lying. I wouldn't tell players that, say, a door has 200 hit points and then have the door not break until they've done 300 damage to it. I wouldn't do that because for the exact reason he said. However, you don't need to be so specific. You can just tell them, that it has a lot of hit points and not, give them an exact number and wait for them to find out the hard way. It's like that's the sort of things like the basic category here is deception, and deceiving someone doesn't necessarily require bald-faced lies. Sometimes it just you tell them something and then let them fill in with their imagination the rest, and then expose the reality, and then they realize that they guessed wrong later, maybe or maybe not.
Hello, Six Nations. Welcome to the show. Okay.
Hey, buddy.
So here's my thoughts on it. And, you don't have to agree. You can, as a matter of fact, I invite you to disagree. For me, it is okay for a game master to lie to his players if they're filling the role of an NPC who is purposely deceiving the players. It is also okay for the game master to lie through the introduction of red herrings, purposeful little side missions or side tracks that lead to nothing, to waste, so to say, the characters, not the players, the characters' time or effort going in a direction that is counter to the actual goal. To me, that is when game masters may lie to their players. As far as players lying to the game master, well, same suit. Players may, I believe, may lie to the game master if they are interacting with an NPC. Because, well, as Conall stated, and from that show that I know what he's talking about, everybody lies, especially rogues and bards. They love telling tall tales and lies. So I would expect such characters to lie to NPCs. If a king brings the party, before him and demands explanation, I'm expecting somebody to tell the truth, but not necessarily the whole truth. I'm expecting them to lie about the treasure they brought in to avoid paying higher taxes. That's what I'm expecting as a game master from my players. Now, me, the game master, I know exactly how much treasure I gave them, but the king doesn't. Because the king's not the one behind the game master screen. The king is just an NPC. They only know what they know. So that is what I believe is allowable lies or deceptions, from player and or game master. And again, I invite you to disagree with me if you wish. So let's take a moment to talk about red herrings. Shadow, now, I know you've gamed for a long time, over 40 years, right?
Oh, yeah.
So I'm assuming you've used red herrings.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
What to you makes a good red herring?
To be honest, I've noticed over the years that it's almost not even necessary, depending on the group you're playing with. You can literally tell them, this is X. And they're going to go and overthink it and just go in 10 different directions, all to find out, oh, he was telling us the truth, and come back to the original statement and take it for what it was. They always overthink it. Sometimes you don't even have to say anything. We all know the looks that we can put across these things here and deceive our players without a single word, with a smirk, with just looking away, and all kinds of body language can deceive our players into getting them to just drive themselves crazy with the what ifs. But when it comes to a red herring, I would highly recommend using a red herring that actually leads to something, just not what they expected. That way they don't feel stupid when they get there. They find out they were wrong, but lo and behold, there's something else waiting, some other clue, some other piece of information, maybe an item, an NPC that they can use as a contact, something like that, that they went, okay, well, that wasn't what we expected, but we still walk away with something. I feel that, in the games that we play, there should always be some sort of benefit, whether tangible or intangible, for a great number of their actions. You want to keep them engaged and feel that sense of accomplishment of having done something, even if it was on accident, that didn't feel like a waste of time. There's nothing worse than leaving someone's house or a shop feeling like you just completely wasted your time, even if it is your own damn fault, for mistaking one thing for another, going off on a tangent, or just sitting around the table BSing, strategizing, etc. Try to encourage them or help them to come away with something that furthers the story. Otherwise, if you were making this a movie, a TV show, or a book, you would kindly edit this entire evening out of the final draft. And I hate seeing that. I mean, we've all read hundreds of books knowing full well that they're just cutting to the chase every time. There may be, some meandering here and there, but there's always something for the reader to pick up and go, oh, well, the player characters didn't notice this, but I, as the reader, noticed this one thing, and I bet that's going to come back later. I try to do something like that. Give them, something that they can walk away with if they've, got the eyes to see and the ears to pick it up. Something that they can, look back on or plan in the future for as it being, however big or small, but a part of the actual story.
Okay. How about you, Mar? What to you makes a great red herring?
Well, one of them is the whole idea of putting elements in the plot and then leaving it for the players to figure out which of them are actually important and which of them aren't. Like, for one example, from a Hyperborea game I was in. The players kill an NPC. The NPC drops a ring of keys, and then the players spend like an hour trying to figure out where all of the keys go. The real answer was that some of the keys don't go to the mansion we're inside, or go to doors that are completely destroyed, and thus you couldn't use the key even if you did figure out which door it was. But us picking up the keys, we don't know that. Some of the keys are actually plot important, some of them aren't.
Okay.
But we ended up going around like trying to figure out what the keys were, because all we knew was that they were for locks that were the right size to be on a door, but we didn't even know if they were actually locks to doors.
Okay. What about you, Conall? What makes a good red herring to you?
Something stupid.
Okay.
In the classic Norwal mystery movies, hard gumshoe sitting in his office, pushing away the sweat because he's got a secretary outside. He hasn't had a case for days. All of a sudden, hears a knocking at the door, and some beautiful bombshell of a woman comes walking in. Now, he's looking at her beauty. He's, just telling the story, but he's missing small details. But he takes the case. Players are kind of the same way. They see everything around them, all the big things, the dragons, the goblins, all the big booms. But they often miss the small little things. A magical... there is a group of bandits out in the outside of the village, and they're always up to no good. They're stealing cattle, they're stealing pies, they're stealing this, stealing that. When the real MacGuffin, what?
You and your goddamn pies.
That wasn't. I didn't mean that for that to be like that, but that's fair. But the villain of the story might be the person that you don't expect. Maybe it's the kid who picked up the magical ring that he found from the artifact, going back to artifact conversation we had a couple videos ago about the small things. Now, not everybody, because there are some people that do pick up the small things, but a lot of people don't look up. When they walk into a building, they don't look up.
Personally, I do.
What is going to happen to you is always going to be big. but sometimes it's something small and freaking stupid. So my red herrings are normally are normally big things, and the big bads are normally something small and stupid that you didn't pick up from the get-go because you're more concentrated on everything else. How many Dresden Files have we read where it's a small thing?
The little thing. I agree. Red herrings to me, I often actually pick up from my players. When they start overthinking, as Shadow said, the problem, they start coming up with, well, red herrings all on their own. That's typically where I get most of my red herrings from, is from my players. They'll overthink it in one direction, and I'll take a note of that, and I might use what they have and expand it a little bit. Just to get them moving in a direction, whether or not it's counter to, well, what they're supposed to be doing or their current mission, or if it might be a side mission, something that they themselves are wanting to look into. So other than, so beyond, what makes a good red herring, how can a game master use red herrings to, well, expand not necessarily the story, but the world itself? For this one, I'm going to start with Conall. How can game masters use those little things, those little red herrings?
Sometimes red herring is a problem for is a solution for a different problem. It might not be the answer to your current circumstances, but might be an answer to a circumstance that you weren't expecting. God, I'm trying to think of a good example for that one. MarHawkman, the story about the keys.
Okay.
Those keys led them all around the mansion, but they didn't do him damn bit of good. Next time they get together, or next story, one of those keys that they had actually opened up a door to had a room that had a painting that had duck.
We got some benefit out of the keys. One of the most hilarious things to ever happen in a Hyperborea game happened because we opened a door with one of those keys. It's just that only 2 of the keys actually did anything important. The rest of them were just red herrings.
That's fair. I'm just using your key story as an example. You might not know what. Oh my God, the Hobbit. The ring, the little ring that he got from Golem into the Lord of the Rings. It wasn't even a big deal in the original Hobbit story. I mean, to be honest, what was it? The author had to go back and rewrite the Hobbit to make it a big deal for the Lord of the Rings to work.
I don't remember reading that, but
Well, one thing to remember about Tolkien's work is that the most recently published version before he died is not the way he originally wrote the story. He self-edited several times over a period of 4 decades?
Between him and Chris, yeah. But
what about you, Mar?
Yeah.
How can a game master use red herrings? What purposes can they serve?
Well, one that I personally like is a puzzle. It's like I said before, it's like, players need to figure out which of these does something useful. And like, you know that there's several NPCs in the town that look interesting. Which one of them is actually someone who you need to pay attention to or talk to or get information out of? Or if the key example is like, how are you going to figure out whether or not you've actually found what the keys go to or not? Yeah, anyway. The fun thing for me, though, is simply presenting players with options and then letting them do stuff with the options, which, someone who's, a logical thinker might figure it out in like 2 seconds and then carry on with it. Or you might have people clumsily fumble with it for an hour. Depends on the group. But as long as everyone has fun, it's good.
Okay. What about you, Shadow? How can game masters use red herrings in their games? What purposes can they serve?
Well, most of the really good answers have already been sucked up, but let's not overlook the fact that this is a game. And as it being a role-playing game, role-playing games are infamous for needing to grind. Okay, going, the never-ending quest to get experience points to go up levels. If they're doing something and they're chasing down a red herring, chances are there's going to be experience points to be had from doing that. Maybe it's a way to just help them go up the level that they need to get to be able to defeat the actual adversary that they're going to meet. The story starts out in their first level, and there's no way on God's green earth they're going to beat the bad guy if they go bump into him right now. But you give them a couple of side quests, some red herrings, shoot them off, right? Going down, side paths and side quests and things that have absolutely nothing to do with the actual story. It gives them an excuse for the story and the GM to allow them to, through the game rules, go up levels so that they can then, when they get to the big bad or the confrontation at the end, they're actually high enough level to do what they actually need to do. Otherwise, they're on a case, they're first level, they figure it out, they go to apprehend the bad guy, and he snuffs all of them like, that.
I wish.
Six Nations.
Yeah,
I
as
believe
well,
you're
Six
talking about
Nations
this book.
brought that up. All my Sherlock Holmes are on Audibles. But
I actually have Hounds of Baskerville. So.
It's
That's
talking about
work. So yeah,
talking about Sherlock Holmes.
I remember reading that one. It was very thought-provoking if you tried to figure out the answer before you got to the end of the story.
But
Yeah, you would think it was the butler, as Six Nations says.
I was going to say, but for a generation, if you want to find good, if you're doing a murder mystery type RPG game and you got young kids, go back to Scooby-Doo.
sure.
Okay. Yeah, they did use red herrings occasionally.
They always
Hell,
throw
yeah,
somebody
Character
else.
name red herring. In the later
Yeah,
Scooby-Doo.
yeah. That one,
There
that was
literally a
hilarious.
character named red herring, which was actually, kind of clever, in a roundabout way to get those players or those viewers that were actually going to go on and do things in life that might actually require those sort of problem-solving skills in life. Not necessarily actually becoming, a detective or a crime stopper of some sort, but
Or a pothead.
Well, one thing I've personally found to be interesting with the original run of Scooby-Doo is that they're all genuine mystery stories. You can, if you want to, watch it and try to guess who the bad guy is before they get to the big reveal at the end. Because it's possible to guess it right and actually, have a deductive logic behind it and not just make a wild guess.
I appreciate your generosity there, Mar, but I mean, come on, there's like 2 or 3 other voiced actors in the entire show that aren't the regular cast members. It's not really, a big jump. You got character A, B, or C.
I know, and it's like a 15-minute long story, so there's not a whole lot of story to sit through either.
But absolutely, if you've got youngsters between the ages of, let's say, 5 and 10, and you sit down and watch it with them, I would absolutely play the game of, who do you think the bad guy is, and hopefully they haven't seen it, like 5 or 6 times before. And
Old Scooby-Doo. I mean, I know this is not really the point, but the old Scooby-Doo, as Mark said, were great whodunit storylines. And if you want to throw red herrings in your RPG, sometimes going back to Sherlock Holmes or more modern classic as what Scooby-Doo is is not a bad tool to have in your toolbox. Yeah, that's
and Six
someone on
Nations
topic,
wants
right?
to add in. There's a film, Roger Kerbal Kent Kaiser Soze from The Usual Suspects narrates this whole story, mingling truth with fiction, sowing doubt.
I never saw that. I've heard a lot about it, though.
So, let's see here. Get back to the questions. So now I guess, when is it, because there is a point in storytelling or running a game that is completely wrong for a red herring. So if there can be a wrong point for a red herring, there must be a right point to introduce a red herring. And when would that be? And I mean, in your opinion, when would that be, Mar?
Well, the one thing that, well, to use a Scooby-Doo analogy, is, you have the big reveal and then have the big reveal actually not be the real big reveal, and, have everyone think that it actually was. Which, admittedly, they did eventually pull that in one of them, but that was kind of sort of like a mid-episode fake reveal, and then realized later that it was something else. Ugh. Anyway, though, that's one of those things that I would personally avoid, because of the fact that you don't end the story with a fake ending by, giving the players what's not really the ending. I guess is the best, easiest way to put it, anyways.
Okay, so don't put a red herring at the end. What about you, Conall? When is a good time to introduce a red herring?
I think if you got a dedicated group of people, I think putting a red herring at the end could be a good idea. Holy crap! Keep them interested in for the next game or the next aspect of this the story, especially if you're playing domain play. I don't really think there is a bad place to put a red herring. I mean, you put one in the very beginning to get them interested, then they get that problem solved. And it depends on how many levels. Are we talking one shots? Are we talking a campaign? How long of a campaign are you planning on running? But I think maybe one in the beginning getting the players going in a direction. Maybe one in the middle to make them stay interested. Well, I really thought it was the mayor. Turns out it was the cleric, but who is the cleric working for? And maybe one at the end for the next aspect of the story. I don't know. I mean,
I don't know if those are red herrings or if those are just
red herrings by definition. Correct me if I'm wrong. Red herrings by definition is it's a mislead.
Yeah, it's a misdirection typically.
It's just wherever it fits, but it has to make sense for it to fit. It can't be blah 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 and da. What?
Okay. So a red herring shouldn't be forced.
No, it should be, or it should. You played not Wrath of the Righteous. Which one am I thinking? Rise of the Rune Lord. Yeah. In the first module, did you really think it was the Governor Foxglove that was the bad guy, or it was they give you two different. What? If you haven't played it by now, it's been out for almost
10 years.
10 years. You live underneath a rock. That's not my problem. And that, it's first edition. We're already on second edition where we're trying to act like it. Some people. I
played the first opening scene of Rise of the Rune Lords, and that was it. I played just the opening scene. Didn't play the rest of it.
So what I'm trying to say,
I don't even remember, and I'm not going to go into spoiler territory with it. Go play the games yourselves.
Yeah, go play the games yourself. I completely agree. Somewhat. But either way, can't be forced. It has to be organic. But if it works, it works, especially if you want to keep your game going.
What about you, Shadow? When is the best or most appropriate time to introduce a red herring to a party of adventurers?
When they have figured it out too easily. And don't say you've never had that happen. We've all had it happen. You think you came up with something great. You thought, oh, I'm gonna get them with this, and then they just hone in on the right answer, and they're headed right, making a beeline for the conclusion way before they're ready. What else are you gonna do? You know, let them go and get clobbered?
Princess is in another castle.
In murder mysteries, I've actually seen ones where they have this guy that gets introduced early on who seems like an obvious bad guy, and then you have 2 or 3 other people later on who get introduced who also kind of sort of seem like obvious bad guys too. And at the end of the thing, the detectives trying to solve the case conclude that it was actually the first guy. And that the other 2, while they're suspicious and whatnot, aren't really
the bad guy.
Okay. For me, red herrings, as I said, I pull from the players. If the players are thinking in a completely tangential or completely different direction, I'm gonna use whatever they have and I'm gonna let them run with it. If they're like, it has to be this way, okay, go that way. Let's see where that tangent leads you. Let's see where that path takes you. Now, granted, if the players are like, I think it's in another town, and I'm like, I'm just gonna level with them at that point. Like, no, it's actually not in another town. You've missed some important clues. Go back, review your notes, and try again, please. Because I don't want to have to pull another town out of my butt cheeks just to satisfy the curiosity. Especially if I hadn't, like, if I've had a long day and I just can't think on the fly, be like, oh, but I can't come up with a town just right now. Review your notes again, please. So there is taking a red herring too far. I do believe that is a thing. Now, I'm not saying that you can't use that red herring as a session arc for another time. Like, you mine the players for gold. The players will sometimes give you some of the best material to run a session out of. And you just mine their ideas for gold.
Absolutely.
And, yeah. So if they have a red herring, if they develop their own red herring and want to go chase it, down, awesome. Let them do it to a point. So,
yeah, you gotta be careful because that red herring can, literally lead to them going, oh, you know what? We don't even care. We're all chaotic neutral. We're just gonna go over here now.
There actually was one let's play of D&D that I saw someone put on the internet where the guy who is the DM puts in this weird note to talking about a shipment arriving at the docks. So the players decide to hijack the ship making the shipment in order to figure out who sent the shipment, and that was something that the DM didn't even conceive as a possibility, is that the players might do something crazy like hijacking the ship.
You ever seen that movie Gremlins?
You mean my players?
I mean, most people's players, you think they're going to go left, then they go right, and they just mob the frack out of something.
Because like with this one though, it's like the DM points at something and it's like, hey, there's a thing, and then the players just like dogpile it and stomp it into oblivion. And it's like, I just wanted to divert your attention for a moment before revealing the real thing.
Right. So
hey, we got a celebrity in the chat. What's up, Dr. Evil?
Yep, Dr. Evil. So I think the reason why, and you can feel, chat, you can feel free to correct me if I'm wrong on this, and so can you, my panel. I feel that the reason why players will dogpile your red herring, as you've made it out, is probably a trust issue, because they may have been lied to or deceived in a wrong method, or with a method not conducive to role playing with trust, because the game master and the players should trust one another enough to be able to play together. It shouldn't be this adversarial, like moving chess pieces when the other person isn't looking. And we talked about adversarial players and game masters just within the last couple weeks. Lying to your players with malicious or purposeful intent can make either adversarial players or adversarial game masters, and that is something to be avoided. So let's get into that aspect of deceit. Why would a game master outright lie to their players? I'm going to start with Conall on this one. Why would a game master outright tell a lie to their players?
The honest answer is he's a shitty DM.
Okay.
Sack the window.
I mean, I outrightly lying to your players is just a big fucking headache that you think you might be solving a problem only for it to come back and bite you in the ass later on. I don't mind the white lies or the minor deceiving, but if it's an outright lie, no, you did this and it did not work, and everybody at the table knows the gig is up, then they're going to lose trust in you, and you will see the quality of their commitment to your game lack if it just doesn't break right then and there. I mean, there might be, once again, going back to the little white lies or deception, I don't have a problem with that to a certain degree. But outrightly just lying for what you think is a good idea, it's not. Just if the night's not going your way, and it's not supposed to go your way as a DM. It's supposed to go, not necessarily supposed to be going the player's way. It's just supposed to be going the way of the game, whichever direction that they get. If you're playing with a bunch of gremlins, you say, "Ooh, look, shiny boat," and they hop onto the boat. Well, ahoy, matey! I guess one of you guys are playing Jack Sparrow, because off to the races we go. The game has, in my opinion, the game has a weird mind of its own. And the moment you break that and you lie to your players, your game is done. It's the body might know it, but the soul has left. It's just a matter of time.
What about you, Shadow? Why would a game master outright lie to their players?
Because they're running a railroad. They want to keep them back on the damn rails.
Hey, I run railroads and I don't outrightly lie.
If you're running a sandbox, then Jade, I'll let you define that in a moment for everybody. If you're running a sandbox, you have no vested interest in anything because you're the game master who is telling them what they see. It's going to be all about them. The story is them. It's not your world. It's not your, failed writing attempt at a story. If you want to write a story, go for it. There's all kinds of night classes you can take and become a better writer and write that great American novel. But you're running a game that's about the players and what they want. You just throw stuff in their way, one way or the other. You can put a lot of detail into it and a lot of, bells and levers and switches and all kinds of different things for them to trip up and push and see what happens, like the old toy you'd put on the crib for the kids, and they do all the things to see what happens. That's what it is. You're so vested in your own story that you're trying to push them back into the story that you want them to play out, when if that's what you want, you should switch places with one of the players and become the player. And trust me, Sometimes that's what every GM needs, is to step away from the DM screen, pull out some dice, a piece of paper, make up a character, and remember what it feels like to be lied to.
What about you, Mar? Why would a game master outright lie to their player?
To be honest, I have seen people do situations where players broke the story so hard that the DM had to force the story to go back the right direction. And sometimes that meant just not necessarily like what you would strictly think of as bald-faced lies, but just like making stuff up on the spot that wasn't part of the original plan, just to tell them something to make them look in the direction he wanted them to go to, even if it wasn't something that was, true prior to the GM speaking it into existence. But, GM's word is law or something.
That's a topic for another night. That's the because I said so night.
But I mean, because like that's one of the things, though, is that some of the times I've seen this is because of the fact that the story went off the rails and the GM is bending the rails to make the story fit what the party is doing.
Hi, my name is
Quantum
DM
Ogre will
Sherman.
be encountered.
So, to me, why would a game master outright lie to his players? And I have two answers to this. The first one, I think Shadow said it first. The players, and actually everybody has kind of alluded to it, the players broke the game master's story. Not the player's story, the game master's story. And I used to be one of those game masters. I thought my grand epics were the end all be all. I was wrong. I'll say it right now. I was wrong. I was such a shit GM for that. And I'll admit it.
I enjoy your games.
You enjoy, and I allowed players to do things and create the story as they went, but I knew where the players were meant to go in my story. I was the problem because I was the story rail GM. So I fully admit that I was wrong on that. It is a method of playing. There are plenty of game masters out there who will, attest, hey, no, railroads are the way to go. I prefer, if a game's going to be on rails, I like to have many junctions or splits in the rail that, you can take off in different directions if that's the way you want to go about it. Sandboxing is a great way of play, but not every game master is built or mentally prepared for that much freedom for their players. But I kind of digress there. So the other aspect of why a game master might outright lie to their players is because the game master doesn't trust the players. And why would the game master not trust the players? And that is, why would the players lie to the game master? Mara, I'm going to start with you. Why do you think players might lie to their game masters?
A lot of the time, it's something that the players, well, in some cases, they just didn't realize that they said something that was untrue and then just ran with it without thinking about the fact that perpetuating an accidental misspoken words would have consequences later. Or maybe they just, didn't think it would hurt at all or something. And, or to be honest, in some cases, it's the laziness thing on the part of the players because they just didn't bother paying attention to what they were supposed to know. And then, just said something that they thought sounded cool. And then as soon as they said it, realized that it was completely, utterly off the deep end.
Sorry, I'm reacting to chat here. I'm just trying to hit all the chat pop-ins. So, so Shadow, why do you believe players lie to their game masters? What might be the cause of that?
Because they want to win at Dungeons and Dragons, which is a cooperative team effort. You get your moment to shine if your GM's worth his weight in players' handbooks, and you win when you get your moment to shine, and you win when you, as a group, do the things, whatever you set out to do, whatever your own personal goals. But it's always cheating at combat. All the rules are about combat, and everybody thinks that if I kill the most, or I, do the most damage, or I look like the biggest badass, cool, go play a freaking war game, play a miniatures game. This is a role-playing game, and there is a reason for each and every kind of character type in the player's handbook. There's a reason for the thief, the magic user, the priest, the warrior. Every one of them gets their turn to shine. It's not all about you 24/7, and these people do not understand that.
Yeah, right here, Justin says it. You don't win at role-playing games, you experience them. I completely agree. I was concerned, I was the player who was concerned about winning in my youth. 20 years ago, I was that crap player. And, I will call myself crap because I was more focused on the damage I could output to my enemies than anything else. That was how I thought the game was meant to be played. And I have come to the realization 20 years later that I was wrong, because I have had more fun in my recent years of play where I focused more on actual role playing and actually like getting into the character and getting into the, the meat of the story and the NPCs. I've had more fun with that than I ever did rolling dice to determine if my numbers were bigger than the other numbers. So, Conall, what about you? Oh, go ahead, Shadow.
Sorry. Would that almost be akin to saying you actually have more fun without the dice?
Oh no, we're not having that conversation. That's blasphemy.
I'm going to put a pin in that.
That's blasphemy.
I'm going to get to the question over to Conall here.
Why
do you believe players lie to their game masters, Conall?
Pride.
Pride?
Okay. I've been guilty of it a few times. In the last I want to say 5, 6, last while, I have tried to.
Don't narrow it down too much.
What?
Don't narrow it down too much.
I have tried to take my pride out of the game, especially when it comes to dice. When you're sitting next to other players who, are heavy hitters, I'm like, I want to be a heavy hitter too, and I rolled a freaking 2. Well, that looks like a 17 for my. Because for my distance, well, how's it 17? Well, magic math equals a 2 equals more magic math, and I got a 17. So I will call myself out on this. But this is when I felt like I needed to compete with other players. I don't feel that way anymore. That was not younger, but that was a personality quirk that I needed to get rid of, and I very well try to do it, but
yeah, I'm not going to touch that one. I'm not going to read that one aloud. I'll let you guys read that one.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah.
Wait, okay, I lost track. What was the question?
No, it's not a question. It's just
your question, not that question.
My question. Why do players lie to their game masters is my question.
So I'll go back to what I said. Just pride, being, don't want to show too proud. And it's just something, a lot of younger players or even older players just need to get over, and pride's a hard thing to get over. I mean, there's a reason why it's one of the sins.
Well, I mean, according to some, those are the sins. The real sins are like apathy, willful ignorance, duality, duplicity. Those are the real sins. Anyway,
okay, something you wish to share with us there. Bubba?
I used to keep a list of the alternate sins, the alternate 7 sins, and I thought they were more egregious in all actuality. Like, especially willful ignorance. That is the one I cannot abide. Anyway, every time someone brings up the 7 deadly sins, I'm just like, you don't know what 7 deadly sins are.
Well, my grandmother did this thing where she's like, oh, yes, the 7 deadly sins, and used like 8 different synonyms for each of the traditional names, which honestly made the whole thing feel a whole heck of a lot more indicting. She's like, oh, wait, I didn't think of it that way in my mind, but oh, that's kind of the same thing. No.
So let's talk about some of the most common lies at the table. Is fudging dice lying? Mar, I'm going to start with you on that one.
That's one of those things where it depends on why you're rolling dice, because like one of the ones that we see people talk about is like the GM that does a die roll to see if a monster makes a saving throw against a spell from one of the players. And then, instead of actually abiding by the result of the roll, he just makes up whatever he feels is amusing for the scenario. That's one of those things where the consequences of it and whether or not it breaks the game honestly matter a lot more than whether or not the GM is faking it. Because some of the time the GM does that because he realizes that, if the party fails, they, TPK, and thus decides to be merciful and spare them for now. Or, if you're one of the stereotypical dick DMs, you're trying to TPK the party and, decide that a battle is going too well in their favor, so you have to even the odds a bit or something stupid like that. But in some cases, you as the GM don't really have a reason to actually do a roll in the first place, so you pretend to roll and then let the players think what they want about the result of the die roll, because there was no target number. You were just doing it to distract them from the fact that it's actually part of the plan.
What about you, Conall? Is fudging your dice lying?
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, I'd say yeah. As I just painted myself in the corner with the last statement I made. But there are times where it can be appropriate as a DM, not so much as a player, but as a player. And it just really depends on what, if you're having, I'm not even talking, well, I am talking about store play, but I'm not even talking about teenagers or adults. I'm talking about kids who are playing. Yeah, shut up, Bruce. I am talking about kids that are trying the game for the first time, and they're concentrating and they're doing everything that they need to do, and they're being best players. They're being the world's best players. And you got your little screen, like doing the good old days where you have all your numbers and all that. And you roll a nat 20, which is just going to outrightly kill that kid's character and got him right then and there. So, and it depends on the kid. It really just depends on the kid. But you have to think of shut up, Bruce. You have to look at D&D or RPG when it comes to kid as I hate to make this joke, but if you teach your kids how to play Magic or RPG, they will not have money for drugs in the future. So you need to get them addicted to the game early in life. So if I'm DMing for a bunch of kids, I will hit them, but I completely just push them down in the dirt with one hand. I will. If I roll a nat 20, I'll dial it down to say, yeah, I hit. I do 4 points of damage.
Sorry, guys, I had a family emergency. What did I miss? I noticed in the chat Hey Raven, baby, how you doing? Anybody else I miss? Justin, Bruce. Oh, what's
Justin
happening, buddy?
joined. Raven. Bruce is in the chat.
Bruce is just blasting me right now, but that's all right. That's a bitch.
So,
Hey.
we're going to be going over some of the most common lies told, and right now we're on fudging dice. Conall,
Okay.
or not Connell's just answered this. So, to you, Shadow, is fudging dice lying?
It depends on who's doing it.
Ha!
Okay.
Wow, that's even more.
Well, okay, let me explain. DMs don't even have to roll dice. Okay, you may like your heads may explode, but there's nowhere in the books, or at least the books I use, that say I actually have to roll dice. Because at the very end of my book, it says I don't have to use any rule I don't want to use. So me using dice is actually just, doing them a courtesy, doing them a favor, because I've run hundreds of games where I'm just throwing out damage, not rolling to hit, because they're fighting 150 troops. I am not rolling my 420 sided dice that many times. You know what I mean? I'm just going, you take 15, you take 13, just randomly, just pulling shit out of my head randomly. Okay. So I don't have to roll dice. And if I'm lessening the numbers, at any time it could be the gods showing favor on you, or it's my own not wanting to total party kill everybody and ruin, the whole game right then and there. We just started playing with some new people. Sometimes you're going to throw the kid gloves on, and for the sake of, friendship, hey, you know what? I will get back to you. I will get back to you, man. Now, if you're a player and you do it, that's cheating, because you are cheating everybody else at the table, not just the GM. Everybody else there could have or might have done something different had you not done what you just did, which is almost always making a saving throw or hitting when you would have missed. And had you not hit, then maybe they would have got the moment to shine, because they would have finished off the bad guy. Or if you had failed your saving throw, maybe they would have been the one to come and rush to your aid and got to do their clerically stuff. So, yeah, I get it that as a GM, you should never fudge the dice, but everybody does it for the sake of friendship and the sake of continuing the game. And, if that makes you too nice a guy, there's worse things you could be called at the gaming table, right?
Well, yeah. Having been called some of those things, yeah.
And really quick,
Justin, we'll make it quick. I fixed the sign. I fixed the freaking name. I fixed my boy.
Whoa, that's a whole different conversation.
No shit, right? No, it was just annoying, because right after he changed the channel name to Shadwell and Son, which is funny, I'm not gonna lie. Some people were trying to find the channel, and they're like, I can't find your channel. And I'm like, and then I looked and I'm like, yeah, because my son's playing a practical joke. So thank you. You made us all laugh. That was what did Grandpa just say?
Adjusting challenges to make a better fit for the party, if too soft or too hard.
Yeah, I mean, because you can literally make a mistake, and go, oh crap, I threw too many goblins. Okay, well they're gonna start missing, or I didn't throw enough, and this is boring, and let's spice it up a little. You just look at it as God coming down and fudging the numbers, not you as the DM. It's literally the gods of your world or the demons of your world doing, casting a spell in the middle of combat from somewhere outside, looking down on the particular combat, because it's always freaking combat in there.
I once saw a GM who was legitimately making an effort to try to have a balanced combat encounter, who had started the combat encounter by taking the lazy approach and pulling an encounter straight out of a module without thinking about how many monsters he was throwing at the party, and realized that the party was badly outnumbered, and probably going to get TPK'd if all of the monsters actually attacked. So he actually outright just had one of the monsters literally just stand around and watch.
Oh my god, I went from playing Rise of Runelord with Jaide every Tuesday, going on a year and a half.
Oh, Wrath of the Righteous, you mean?
Wrath of the Righteous, yeah, I'm sorry. Wrath of the Righteous Pathfinder, Pathfinder map, Pathfinder monsters, Pathfinder this, to running 5th edition. And I'm like, well, there's 6 people in my thing. They're all level 5, so that's, I was doing the DM math in my head. So I'm like, I could throw X amount of goblins at them, not thinking goblins and 5e are not the same as gobos and Pathfinder. And my friend, a mutual friend of mine, Jaide's like, are you trying to kill the party? I'm like, no, you guys should be able to swing this. He's like, no, the action economy is completely different between Pathfinder and 5th edition. So that was a DM's bad. And that's where I had to start. But there is no fudging the dice on Roll20. There's just Roll20 fucking you.
And that's where I'm taking, and now I'm gonna preface this. I used to be the game master who rolled behind a screen. My rolls were secret. You never knew what my numbers were. And sometimes I'd roll a nat 20, and I'd be like, nope, I don't want to do that to my players. I just don't want to do that. Sometimes I'd roll a nat 1, and I'm like, nope, I don't want to do that to I don't want this combat to be over right now. And then sometimes I'd roll max damage. Sometimes I wouldn't. So I used to be the game master who fudged dice. But then I realized I was cheating my players. I was cheating not just my players, but I was cheating the game itself, because the game isn't supposed to be about perfect numbers. It's about the experience. It's about, going through the challenges. And if your character dies, your character dies. Not all hands of fate are dealt fairly. Sometimes you are dealt a really crap hand.
Remember how I said in the keys example that one of the keys that actually did open something led to one of the most hilarious things I've ever seen in a Hyperborea game? Well, that specific incident was the key led to a small crypt room with a single coffin in it. And then one of the party members is like, oh, hey, a coffin. I wonder what's inside the coffin. Opens the coffin and then gets Superman punched by a teenage zombie.
What?
He gets Superman punched so hard that the GM described it as his jaw getting broken, and he collapses to the floor motionless.
Right. I get that one. And seeing somebody get the jaw busted, it does kind of go down that way. I used to box. I've seen it firsthand. But what threw me off was a teenage zombie.
Yeah, I know.
Coffin, you said coffin. I'm thinking, my name is Dracula, blah, blah, blah. And no, you brought in the teenage vampire.
Zombie instead of vampire, yeah.
I mean,
but again, like you hit it right on where you knew what was coming when I described the room. But the player decides he's going to open the coffin anyways. Because you knew something inside that coffin was not of this world.
Was Fame and Dean with you? Was this a CW show?
No.
So, I mean, and Bruce here brings up a point about my dice rolls.
Yeah.
For the life of me, I can almost never, on a D20, I can almost never roll above a 10. Like, I roll inverse bell curves. I swear to you, it's true. For many years, I've been rolling the inverse bell curve. I don't get average rolls, almost never. I'm either rolling below average consistently, or I'm rolling, my dice are on absolute fire, and I'm just blazing a trail. So yeah, that my dice rolls are something else. They do not follow the standard bell curve.
I've been in multiple physical games with Jaide, and I've always kind of joked to myself I was going to keep track on how many times he can roll past a 15, in one of these campaigns. I'm like, oh, no, that's just kind of dickish. I really should have, so I would have the nuts for later, 10 years later.
And so because I used to, fudge my dice rolls, in typically in favor of my players, because I wanted happy players. I wanted players who were going to come back and be like, yeah, this is the greatest thing ever. My character's so awesome and so powerful. And I'm like, yeah, they are. Uh-huh. Sure. Yep. That's what they are. And that's what my concern was as a young game master. I wanted my friends to be happy and really into the game itself. I was less concerned about the roles of fate. Well, fate is a fickle bitch at times. Sometimes fate is stacked against you, and there's nothing you can do about it. And that's part of the role-playing game that a lot of people leave out. And I don't think it should be left out. Sometimes your character just has fate stacked against them. There's nothing they can do about it. And that's bad dice rolls. Don't fudge it. Let it happen. And RPG Grandma, you're right. Roll the dice in the open. Don't hide them behind a screen. Don't, hide them from your players. And players, don't hide them from your game masters. What the dice say are what the dice say. If it's good, it's good. If it's not, try it next time. There will be a next time. And if your character dies, okay, make another one. Try something new, try something different. So what other lies are commonly told at tables? Conall, you wanted to add something?
You mean game related? You mean game related, right?
Yes, game related lies.
Oh, so I have a girlfriend in Canada is not accepted. Okay.
Yes, Bruce. Yes.
No.
I'm just making my way through chat.
Dying, opening. I agree. Rolling open, and I do that for the most part, especially when I'm playing with older people. As a DM, I will just roll openly, and we all have a good chuckle of wherever it rolls at. Doing digital dice being on Roll20, all you can do is just grin and bear it. But be careful of those special DMs and those special players if you're at somebody's house who has a bad time rolling, because those dice become missile weapons. And you never quite know which direction they're going. You'll get a swear word of some nature, then a whee off the table, the dice goes like a bat out of hell. I'm not joking.
Typically towards the freezer.
I'm not. I'm joking, but I'm not joking. Jaide over here has seen it at game shops, at his own house, when we were sharing an apartment, and it's not me throwing the dice. You believe out there in YouTube land that it's me throwing my dice. No. It's no, wrong finger.
It's me.
That guy right there.
Yeah. I toss my dice across the room like, nope, done with that one. Next die.
Tossing is a polite way of saying he fucking hurled them across the room.
I don't do that as much anymore because I've got metal dice.
No, your wife would kill you. Let's be honest.
Yeah, true.
Well, one of my brothers bought a set of metal dice, and then my sister's like, yes, I get that they're really cool and pretty and stuff, but this is a glass tabletop. No.
Yeah. Or I'm playing on a TV screen. Yeah. Please don't use metal dice.
Right. So, let's see here. So let's talk about some of the other lies that are commonly told at tables before we get into plot twists.
What is this?
Conall, what are some other lies other than dice rolls that are typically used at tables?
You gave me a +1 sword last week. No, I didn't. Yes, you did. I have it written right here, right on my character sheet. No, I didn't give you a +1 sword last week. I can tell you what I gave everybody. Then why do I have a +1 sword written on my character sheet? I didn't put it there. You must have.
Okay.
Players having
lying
shit.
About gear.
Yeah. Players having shit that normally would not have. Granted, there has been a few occasions where in your campaign with the globes of sunlight, that I pulled out of my ass. Granted, I really did have them. I had them written down on a character sheet and dated. That was one of the few. I was not lying about gear, but sometimes you get players that will have magical or not magical gear that they shouldn't have. You know what treasure? Most DMs have a general idea, especially recently with how games are being played today. They have a general idea what's getting handed out. I remember going back to the 3.5 days where me, you, Jeff Kopech, and Russ and Starkweather and Kevin were all sitting at a table as one of you guys were. I need D100s from you guys. I need a D100 from you. And the treasure was basically wherever the hell he rolled out of the damn book. When that was the case, you can sometimes, in my opinion, and I could be wrong, you can sometimes sneak in treasure that you weren't supposed to have just because it was a random shot. Wait, hold on. But anything that has a plus to it, most people and the other players or the DM is like, yeah, you got that +2 bow a couple weeks ago. Did I really? I forgot to write it down. People remember shit.
It's also the game master's job to remember everything. Take notes, jot things down.
I saw my name in chat. I'm trying to see.
I'll let you go find that. All right, Mar, what other lies are commonly told at the table?
Justin, I would never do such a thing. Grinding my cigar into somebody's hand. No, that's a horrible thing to do. You do it above the right. Anyways,
Well,
Have you been watching Videodrome lately? Have you been watching Videodrome lately? Nobody gets that reference?
I mean,
Nope.
I've heard the name before.
Deborah Harry and James Woods. Go check it out.
Oh, I watch anything that James Woods is in.
Anyway, one that I've personally done as a player is, hey, you definitely prepared your spell list, but before we started, right? And then I realized that no, actually, I didn't actually bother updating anything, and don't even remember whether or not I learned new spells since the last time we were playing this campaign.
Fuck, I have spells.
Okay, so spell lists, having the right spell prepared at all times.
I always have fireball.
Seemingly.
I mean, there was one time when I legitimately did actually have a water walking spell prepared, but that was because the GM told me that we were going to be sailing to our destination on a boat. So I'm like, okay, yeah, I should probably do that. And then everyone was surprised that I knew water walking because they all thought it was useless, even when you're, on a boat and trying to scavenge supplies from a wrecked ship on the high sea.
Shit. I'm on a boat and I cast spells. Water breathing, water walking, water dancing are going to be the top spells I fucking pick. I'm sorry.
I mean, to be honest, my character's in the Hyperborea setting, and she's an Eskimo, and the plot is that she comes from a coastal fishing village.
Yes, I am.
Knowing water walking just makes sense.
I'm sorry. But yeah, I agree.
Oh, well.
So, what about you, Shadow? What are some of the other common lies that are told at the table?
Guys, let's face it. There's a lie for every occasion. There's so many. I could go on and on and on. My least favorite is healing. Oh yeah, I still have healing potions, or I rolled this much on healing. That's just fear of, having to roll up a new character, and I get it, but you know what? Don't do it. There's something to be said about an actual permanent death in a story. I know, that was one I was really tempted. but all of them inevitably point toward not dying on the player's part. Whether it's excessive damage or anything else, it's all about not wanting to roll up another character. And if you've never done that, you've never really played the game. You've denied yourself the all of the ups and downs that go with, oh my god, that character was so cool. Oh well, time to roll up a new one. If you've never said that, you're not playing the damn game.
Yeah, I've said it plenty of times.
I've said it a dozen
most
times.
common lie that I have come across, other than fudging dice rolls, is when characters lie about, or when not characters, but when players lie about some of the abilities or feats or powers they picked for their character. And I don't want to have to look things up in a book anymore. I'm kind of tired of that. I want less page turning at my table and more just playing. I used to be the game master who would stop the game and look up a ruling because the player lied to me about what the power did, or they didn't understand the power that they picked. I used to be a page turner. I don't care anymore. I just don't. Like, oh, okay, it does that. Cool. I can adjust. That's fine.
Go out throughout the force.
Right. And I just, I stopped caring about like the individual feats, powers, abilities of classes when I switched over to index card RPG. Like, I don't want to be turning pages in a book at the table running a game. I just don't. That I hate that feeling. I hate when game masters do that while I'm the player. Like they're sitting there turning pages. It's like, well, I don't think that's how it works. And then you spend 10 minutes trying to decide what the ruling actually says. Make a ruling, move on. And players, you are responsible for knowing your character. You're responsible for knowing the limitations of the abilities and powers that you pick. It's not the game master's job to know that. It's your job. And don't lie about the power. Know the limitations, know what you can do, but if you think you can use something and stretch it a little out of the box, with unconventional use or methods, go for it. Your game master might reward you, or your game master, if they hate out of the box thinking, they might penalize you. Know your game master, know the game you're playing. So,
on the whole page turning thing, though, I want to add really quick. I don't mind it. I still am to a certain degree, but I will say, I'll write down a note for the end of the game. If something was not, it's like that doesn't gel. I don't remember that correctly. I'll make sure I write a note, and at the end of the game, I'll look it up, and me and that person will look it up. And if they're right, I'm like, congratulations. I don't say congratulations, you're right. But I'm like, okay, cool. If they're wrong, it's like, well, either, we need to find a way to work this out. So either you need to pick a feat, as you say, that you understand better, or, maybe this is not the character from you. Because I know I'm not the only player that's made characters out there that he thought he understood until he got into the character. I'm like, no, this is not my play style. I should not be the wizard. I don't want the extra paperwork.
I mean, to be honest, that's kind of where the fudging spell list thing comes in, is because you just kind of sort of forgot to do the paperwork in order to actually prepare spells.
Let's see here. Yeah, note things and look up later. Started that playing 2E. Yeah. And that's what I do in Index Card RPG as well. Is I'll make note of some of the powers that are used. I familiarize myself with most of the starting powers, but when I say, oh hey, you know what, take a milestone for the evening. You've completed the goal or the arc. Take a milestone reward. I might have to go look up the extra milestones that are not listed in the types. But, I do that after the game. I do that, after even the, what was it called? The tribunal has ended. And Tribunal, for those not aware, who have not played Index RPG, the Tribunal, you're familiar with it if by another name. Tribunal is, hey, what did you like about the game? What were some of the stars? What were some of the wishes? Like, what did you find awesome about the game? And what are you wanting for the next session? That's Tribunal. Anyway, so let's. I think we've kind of hit a lot of the major common deceptions at the table. Let's go into
There's a question.
plot twists.
There was a question.
There are several questions.
Oh no, Flatey asked one. I saw you have a few of them lit up. But
yeah,
Flatey asked a good one.
So I will get to that one. What is that? Hold on. Question for the crew. Would you allow sneak attack damage with natural weapons like claws? I'm leaning towards yes. Okay, so this is a game question specifically. Okay. Short answer. Short answer is if you're playing a D&D derivative or D&D or Pathfinder or whatever, the answer is yes. It is a melee weapon. If the character is completely unaware of your existence and you hit them from wherever with sneak attack, you get sneak attack damage regardless, even within 30 feet for those 3.5 players.
Just think of the big cats. That's what they do. Their damage is, often, especially like pumas and jaguars and things like that, they stalk their prey and then, boom, out go the lights.
Yep.
I agree. If you're a sneak attack for 3.5 Pathfinder, you have to be a rogue. But if you're playing a race that has a claw attack, then I'm not going to say no.
Yeah. I don't know, Amar, do you agree that sneak attack should apply to any type of weapon?
I mean, what did the game rule say? I mean, logically it follows. Does the game go without logic? I mean, me personally, if I was, making up the rules, then yes, it would, because you're attacking with whatever means are at your disposal. And in some games, natural weapons are actually a major part of it, and disallowing natural weapons would be a nerf to anyone who doesn't use actual bladed weapons and only relies on their own innate abilities. But it depends on the game.
It's been a rogue sword.
Guilty as charged.
I am not a nerd. I am a geek. I get laid every so often.
So, sorry to derail. Well, we don't derail, right? We're not on rails. We're in a sandbox.
My name's not Sherman.
All right. So I
Sherman.
have
General Sherman, rails.
Yes.
Read a history book.
Neckties.
You know how old I am?
You could have been. You're right. You're right. You could have been there.
I mean, let's face it. When you've seen a picture of a railroad track bent into the shape of a bow tie, you don't forget that.
Anyway, so let's move on to plot twists with our last half hour. So this question, and Nerdy Ogre actually asked this earlier on. What is the difference between a plot twist and a red herring? And there was some discussion on this between, I believe it was him and Justin Thor LP. Yeah. And it was kind of answered, but a plot twist is something that you might see clues of it coming, but it changes the outcome at the end. Whereas a red herring, it's a mislead to get you away from the goal or the end of the story or the end of the goal. Because the red herring is kind of roadblocks or like little side paths to distract you, whereas a plot twist is this something critical has changed. That is a plot twist.
Think every M. Night Shyamalan movie ending.
Yeah, pretty much. Why do I fucking keep watching them?
So, let's get into the plot twist then. So, what makes a good plot twist? What is your definition of what makes a great plot twist? And I'm going to start here with Shadow.
Anything that completely subverts the player's expectations as to the climax or solution to the current plot or story or mission, where suddenly they think they're doing one thing and they've been doing the whole thing completely different. One of my favorites was in the TV show Firefly, the train job, when they thought they were just stealing something.
God.
And then suddenly they find out they just stole the life-saving meds. Sorry, spoiler alert. For the entire town, and they had to do the right thing. They could not live with themselves, and nobody questioned it except maybe Jane.
Jane questioned it.
There's always that one guy.
I like Jane.
You are Jane.
I can live with that.
And it's something
Jane's
like
hat's
that.
upstairs. So
It completely, alters their perspective on what's going on, what they're doing, what they're supposed to be doing. Now suddenly they've got to make that decision. Are they gonna continue on with their proposed mission or endeavor, and be the bad guys at the end, or are they gonna do the right thing and hope for the best?
what about you, Mar? What do you believe makes for a good plot twist?
It needs to be something where it doesn't discard the story leading up to it. It needs to be something where it explains the story leading up to it in a way that makes the story feel different, even though it's not wrong. It's just sideways, I guess you could put it. Like one of the examples that I put on Discord a while back was from an old Twilight Zone episode where, the most of the episode you have this guy in this rural town running around trying to convince everyone that Martians are invading Earth, and doesn't really go anywhere. I mean, you, the viewer, kind of sort of have the idea that he's actually right, but they don't really come out and say what the truth of it is. Then at the end, after the guy who's trying gets hauled off and is no longer in town, you find out that he wasn't right. He wishes he was right, but it was worse than he thought. And that was the rug pull ending of that episode. And what made it memorable is you find out at the end that, yes, there was actually a Martian in town scouting the area for a Martian invading force. But what the guy who was yelling that the Martians were coming didn't know was that there was also a Venusian in town. And the Venusian was someone no one would suspect of being an invader because he'd been living there for years. And no one knew that. And, let's just say that he'd done a better job of scouting Earth for his masters than the Martian did. And that was the rug pull ending, is that, oh yeah, by the way, Earth is not only facing a Martian invasion, but it's entirely possible we'll end up with a three-way slugfest between Earth's defenders, Martians, and Venusians.
My money's on the Venusians.
Yeah, especially if the Martians were already found out, but the Venusians weren't. What about you, Conall? What to you, or in your mind, makes a good plot twist?
Everybody thinking it's one thing.
Mm-hmm.
We get hung up on certain aspects. Red dragons are always chaotic, evil. Gold dragons are always lawful good. So people get hung up I get hung up myself on certain aspects. But when you think the big bad is something, how should I put this? When you think that you're fighting the red dragon for the sake of the kingdom, only to find out it's a lawful, supposedly lawful good gold dragon. I'm using this as an example. That is actually the bad guy. It's the one you don't expect. I think makes good plot twist. How would a red dragon be good? Well, the red dragon was never good, but the lawful good dragon, his ideas of lawfuls were kind of sticky.
Different. They were different, fundamentally different.
Fundamentally
than
different.
Your view.
Right. And everybody needs to be this way. And the gold dragon was putting the dick into the dictator. And so sometimes the king or whoever you're working for is the bad guy, and the players don't know it until the end. And hopefully one of the players catches on before the gig is up. Because if they don't, they could have a very unfortunate ending for that story. And I think those are some of the best stories because we always assume that good people are good people, right?
For me, what makes a good plot twist for me is the ones that have moral, delineations where, you think you're doing, good. You are actively attempting to make the game world a better place, than you found it. You're actively attempting to stamp out evil wherever it may be, only to realize at the end that the greatest evil was actually you. And I love to pull this one on murder hobo groups. The reason I pull this one on murder hobo groups is because they don't care about, life. To them, sure, those players, it's just a game. They don't care or have any investment in the world. They don't have any investment in their characters, but after 3-4 years of murder hoboing their way through a game, they might start to become invested. They're like, yeah, we've got all these things. We've got all these people, we've got all these, this castle, these servants, whatever. So they might start getting a little invested in their world, their kingdom, their stuff, only to realize at the very end that they were the true evil of the world. To me, that was the absolute best plot twist that was ever pulled. Unfortunately, I was one of the players. I thought I was, in this group of, epic, heroes, and I'm like, oh wait, are we the bad guys? Because we'd gotten to the final scene, and it wasn't a fight. It wasn't even a contest. It was just the leader going, well, you've thwarted all my plans. You've thoroughly destroyed my armies, my nation, and my people. There's nothing left. Congratulations. You win. You win a broken kingdom. I now give you the throne. Do as you wish. And that moment, I'm like, oh God, we were the bad guys. And and here's what made it great. And here's how the game master made it really great for us. He put in all the clues of missions that we had gone and done, and but he had twisted how it was presented. Like, we went and cleared out I think it was a temple for, I can't remember what reason, but we cleared out this temple. So we heard a rumor of these guys going around desecrating temples. We're like, oh God, that's horrible. Why would anyone do that? And we didn't realize it was us until the end. And that's when everything, and we had all the clues laid out. And as a matter of fact, because I was taking such copious notes and I had all the detailed notes, and I'm like, wait, all of these things, and I would go back to, I would correlate from my notes, like, so here's the rumor, and here's what we did a couple months back. They line up, and all the players at the table, like, oh God, we're the awful evil that needs to be stopped. And that was the next campaign. So now I've kind of explained how that plot twist was set up. Shadow, how do you set up your plot twists? How do you just set them up?
I usually come up with, something that's incredibly, like you said, interesting in the conclusion, and try to, give them clues leading up to it, knowing that they're just not going to take it. They're not going to take it, and they're going to go their own way. But I keep giving them clues, and players being what they are, they just won't go. They won't take it.
Earlier, I heard a great example. I don't know what the hell I was doing, but I found my way over to DM James' show earlier today, and he is like, they were talking about Cthulhu, and I'm like, running a Cthulhu game and not actually have Cthulhu show up. Like, yeah, okay. If I'm playing Call of Cthulhu, I'm kind of expecting to see all wiggly face. But no, not having him show up, that is a twist. Better yet, having your players survive. That would be a plot twist.
Well, in a Call of Cthulhu game, you have this eerie, mysterious setting. And you constantly expect supernatural horrors and constantly run into natural horrors. That is definitely, something that players wouldn't expect. That's true.
Yeah, I've been bouncing around the idea of having run one. I have a couple of the books now. Gotta find the right group, but having the Center of the Madness come out, Walt Disney World.
So what about you, Mar? How do you set up for plot twists?
Really depends on what the a twist is supposed to be. I mean, because one of the plot twists that I actually did in a Foundry mission I wrote years ago. Oh, I don't remember how many years ago that was now, but it was several. Well, anyway, the plot twist at the end of the thing was that you were there to figure out what a strange distortion in space was. And you end up finding yourself inside this thing that's kind of sort of like a wormhole after going through some weird rift in space. Well, you go through the wormhole, and then you eventually find yourself in what's not the universe you just left. That was the plot twist at the end, is that it's not going to a different location in three-dimensional space. It's moving to a different plane entirely. But it's one of those things where I kind of put in hints about it that were things that were more out of universe hints than in universe hints, because I think there is a line of dialogue in there to kind of sort of like lampshade it. But this story I was writing was inspired by something from Star Trek The Animated Series, where they have this region of space called the Delta Triangle, where ships get pulled into a subspace pocket that's not part of three-dimensional space, and they get stuck there. And you finding this rift into what's the same region of space, well, you actually have a way of getting out, which is hasn't collapsed yet, which is kind of sort of a big deal. And that was actually the plot twist, was you didn't actually know where you were going when you went inside the rift in space. Unless you actually paid attention to the background story of the Delta Triangle, which I didn't actually fully explain in the mission I wrote.
Oh, okay. So, Conall, when setting up for a plot twist, what is your method? Like, how do you go about it?
I pick somebody that no one would expect. Children always are the best. Children are just great that way. NPC children, or maybe a good priesty fellow works as well. But somebody that no one expects. Oh, Father O'Brien is sitting in his cathedral over there all day, working up sermons for every Wednesday and Sunday. No one will expect him of doing anything. Or you got Timmy, who plays in the fields and he helps the old lady cross the street or something of that nature. It's
Sorry, guys.
Those are the people I look at for NPCs. That I'm like, okay, the main crutch of the story or the big bad is going to be them somehow, or they're going to be responsible for it, or they're going to be working for it. And it's the how am I going to slide this, and how am I organically going to make this work without putting my head into a vice. And I find, once again, people look at big pictures. They never look at the little picture, the fine writing at the bottom of the contract. And so that's how I normally set up my twist. It's going to be some NPC that you never saw coming. No, Timmy would never do anything like that. No, Father O'Brien, or pick whoever you wish, would never be that. And they're either being controlled by something, they are something, or they were something. Now they're very much something else.
So for me, when I'm setting up for a plot twist, or rather, I'm not necessarily setting up a plot twist. Like, I have in mind, like, who the big bad is. Like, I know who.
Sorry about that, guys.
You're fine.
What the hell's
I
wrong
know
with my
who the
device?
main opposition of the game is going to be. I know who the main opposing force is. I don't necessarily reveal that main opposing force immediately. I seed hints at that opposing force for the players to discover. If they choose not to look in that direction at that opposing force, and they choose like, it's like, that's a small fry. They don't, they don't have any purpose. They're going after them. We can do that as a milk run. Our main focus needs to be this guy who's calling in demons. Let's go take care of him first. All to realize that the guy who was summoning demons was only doing so to counter the true evil, the thing that they did not pay any attention to. So to me, when you set up for a plot twist, it's the slow build. It's knowing who the main force that opposes the players is going to be, and you start small. You just keep the little things going, the little seeds, and leave them along the trail, while putting the big showy things off in a different direction, not necessarily as a red herring, but you have two opposing forces that are opposing each other, and the players decide which one they want to go after first. Now, if they go after the main guy, your main opposing force, awesome. There's no plot twist. It's kind of linear. They just go for the main bad guy. If they decide to go for the not main bad guy, or the guy who you hadn't set up as the main opposing force who wants to wreck everything, as the guy who's trying to prevent everything from being destroyed, and they go after him first, well, when the plot twist is revealed, you've sown all the seeds to say, hey, you're supposed to be looking at this, not that. That's when the players go, oh no, what did we do?
I mean, that is something I've seen people do to great effect sometimes, is that, the people playing along don't stop and think about, why is this guy who we think is evil doing what he's doing? And they just, like blindly assume that, bad guy doing bad guy things for bad guy reasons, and don't actually try to figure out what the bad guy reasons are.
I have often found that players don't care what the reasons why the villains they are defeating, they don't care about their reasons. They're just villains. They need to be defeated.
Mhm.
However, I've had a few players who've gone, why are they doing what they're doing? What is the purpose? And they'll go and try to investigate the cause or the reason that so and so is summoning demons. Like, for what purpose are you doing this? And if they stop to actually role play rather than role play, they find the answer that they are looking for, and they get onto the track of finding and fighting or opposing the true opposition. So a lot of times my plot twists, build themselves, or the players build them for me. So anyway, that is, I think all we have for this evening. Let's get into the outros. I'm gonna start with this one. Free RPG Day is coming up this Saturday on the 24th. For those of you who are interested, a link is in the description to find a local game store near you that might be running Free RPG Day. There's plenty of little one-shot modules to pick up and play. You might even have some game masters running content. I will be running content in my area. About 3 games that day, as the store is only open noon to about 7. So I'm going to be running 3 times, and, we're going to have a great time. So get out there and play some games. Shadow, what have you got coming up?
Well, if I can get over these technical difficulties, it's been one of those nights, guys. Little guy and I are working on some stuff behind the scenes that we can't talk about. So it's really cutting into our video schedule. So I'm having to, thanks, Grandma, do what I can when I can, which is really, really unusual for us and the channel. Trying to get content out and do things. You're gonna have to bear with us just for a little while longer, because Jackie's going away on vacation in about 2 weeks, and then it's just gonna be you, me, and the rest of the internet muddling through all kinds of topics, and maybe some painting and crafting and stuff like that. For a while, because he's going to be going back to school and all that stuff. So we're going through some changes, but for the most part, they're all going to be leading to some really, really big stuff starting in July and on through the new school year. So hopefully you guys will stick around and enjoy the show. How about you, Conall?
This coming Saturday, I have Roos's campaign where we will be fighting fighter giants, I think he said, which is kind of funny because I'm fighting fire giants in another campaign that's not put on YouTube because, for reasons. That's what we'll be doing Saturday. I was hoping to get to where Jaide was doing his game at. I still might be able to make it, maybe, and still make it to Bruce's campaign on time. I'll figure out how I can squeeze that goat through. Sunday. Me, Shadow, Jack, Omenau, Mark, and whoever else decides to join us, we'll be talking about Jack's choice, The Battle Wizard. It's an old Asian Chinese martial art film with people dressed up as gorillas that shoot laser beams from their fingers. Everything that you could want in a foreign film. I will be drunk.
You've seen it, Dave? You've seen it?
This was not my pick. This was Jack's. I've rage quit it twice already as I was trying to get through it. Yeah, it will be fun. We'll be talking
Tearing
about
it a new one.
what?
Tearing it a new one.
Tearing it a new one, right? Then the week after that, we will be talking about good foreign film. That's my pick. It's called Brotherhood of the Wolf. It's a French film. They speak frog. They go loud, ribbit, ribbit, ribbit. With that being said, that's what I got going on. What about you, MarHawkman?
Mostly what I do on my channel is streaming video games, although I do sometimes post some stuff related to RPGs. And one I'm probably going to do tomorrow is a bit of a mini review of the new supplement for the Hyperborea 3rd edition, which is, well, one of the things in Hyperborea is that you have all these different races of humans and so on, with mostly the differences between them are cosmetic and cultural. Well, what this does is it gives you a chart you can look up when you're creating mixed breeds, like someone who's half Roman, half Tlingit. What would someone like that look like? Well, this actually has a chart to give you an idea as to what to make that look like, instead of just, making up whatever. Something completely optional, but also kind of cool because someone went to the work of figuring out what every single possible combination should look like.
Awesome. Well, for me, I've got 3 RPG Day coming up, but I've also got, this show. So if you out there have a suggestion for a future topic of Gatekeepers, leave it in the comments section below. Or if you really want to, you can join our Discord and post the question directly in our suggestion channel. I collect all the questions that I can from there, and we decide as a collective group typically what the next episode is going to be. So with that, I bid you all a very good night, and we'll see you next week.
God bless.
Have a good night, everyone.
Good night.
Read Jim Butcher's Dresden Files. Lots of red herrings and a lot of plot twists.